So just a few examples in order for you to understand and what it looks like. This is our free website that everybody can go and ask, so who are the biggest news and media website in Netherlands? And it's give you a nice list of all the biggest websites, and you can see that the number one is telegraph.nl. And then you can ask the website, so tell us a little bit more about traffic.nl, and it can tell you, okay, traffic.nl is ranked globally 1,162 in the world, is the most used, 12 used website in Netherlands, etc. And you can see down below that we're seeing that you have around 40 million visits every month, and they're spending 12 minutes. So this was a nice example about website, and we do the same thing for apps, so we can ask the websites, like, show me what is the most used financial apps in Netherlands, and you can see a nice list, and the most used is ING app. Now that I told you what we do for a living, I'm going to start talking about what we're seeing from our eyes in the digital world. So what we're seeing, that there is a nice, interesting phenomenon of becoming more and more consolidated. What that means? It means that we're seeing a massive monsters that basically control the digital world. And just to give you this example, you can see that those 5 websites, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Amazon, are in charge of more than 40% of the entire internet traffic worldwide. And if you look on Netherlands itself, you see that 1 of every 5 online visits going either to Google or either to Facebook. And if you look on the travel industry, you can see 1 of every 7 visits for shopping websites around the world are going to Amazon. So what basically understand that our world dominated by very strong monsters. So the big question is how you can create sustainable growth in this very hostile environment. And I think that in this conference, we have those great examples of those 3 companies I'm going to speak today that basically are able to build a very nice growth business. Booking.com, how they consolidate their industry, Periscope, and of course, Reddit. And let's begin with the nice example I want to share with you today. So the first example I'm going to speak is about Booking.com, planet Earth #1 accommodation site. And Booking.com is part of a bigger group that called Priceline Group that have a massive brand like Kayak, Agoda, OpenTable, and etc. And when you start looking on the entire travel industry, you can see that 1 of every 5 visits that are going into the travel industry online, visiting one of those 3 websites. Priceline, TripAdvisor, or Expedia. And you can see how big Priceline compared to all the others players, basically very dominant player in this market. And if you look only on Booking.com, look how strong Booking.com is. 1 of every 10 visits in travel industry worldwide go through Booking.com. And if you look only on the US traffic, you can see that 1 of every 7 travel visits in the US going into Booking.com. And we decided to show you this nice map that you don't see it that clearly, but we decided to mark every country where Booking.com is one of the top 3 dominate websites out there, and it's basically show you how strong world domination have around the world. Now, the second company I want to talk about you today is Periscope. So Periscope is a very interesting example for you here that don't know what Periscope is. It's basically an app for live stream video on the Twitter platform, and that's been acquired by Twitter. Now, when Periscope launched their product, there was another player that were doing something very similar called Meerkat. Meerkat was doing very big noise. It got a lot of traction and engagement. And of course, and also it's an Israeli startup, and I'm from Israel, so I'm very well familiar with their story. So they were operating in the market, and the interesting thing that when Periscope launched their app, and was backed by Twitter, we saw this amazing example. So look how it's look from our eyes when a giant like Twitter decided to push you when you launch your product. And look on this very interesting graph that's showing you the current installs on Android device and the difference between Meerkat and Periscope. What you're seeing here, that Meerkat was there, have a nice graph, but then Periscope decided to launch. You can see like basically overcome Meerkat like in less than a week and growing up like crazy. So I'm going to try to go, and of course, most of this growth comes through Twitter, pushing it very aggressively in order to dominate this market of live stream video on the Twitter platform. So we decided to share with you interesting insight about Periscope growth that we saw. So this slide here, showing you something very interesting about the ability of Twitter to push to their audience a Periscope app. So we looked on the current installs Android device in the United States, and we saw that 10% of all the Android devices that have the Twitter app also installed the Periscope app, meaning that Twitter was doing great work in able to taking the current users and also convincing them to install this second app for live streaming. And now I'm going to try to talk with you about another insight we saw about how Periscope getting this massive amount of growth and traffic. So we decided to look on the Google Play page of Periscope to understand how users are arriving to this page and basically downloading the Periscope app. So we saw that the massive amount of the traffic arriving to the Periscope app come from referrals, meaning that there was websites out there pushing a lot amount of traffic into the app to download it. So we went back, and I'm going to show you now all the chain flow of traffic that basically going to install. So we saw that the massive amount of the traffic, of course, come from Periscope websites. So people arrived to Periscope homepage and then was going through to the app to download it. So we decided to look and see where Periscope was getting most of the traffic. So of course, you can see that the majority of all the traffic come from social, although a big chunk of it come from referrals, but social was the main traffic for this website. And of course, if you look on the social, it's coming from Twitter. So we saw this nice flow of Twitter heavily pushing users into Periscope website, into their homepage, and from there to the Google Play, and then installing the app. So we decided also to look on the Periscope website to see if we can identify more interesting insights. So the two nice things occurred. So the first one that not only in this aggressive campaign of Twitter, they also went with very aggressive PR campaign, and we saw all those great publications like The Guardian, Wired, the Next Web itself, putting a lot of articles about Periscope and pushing a lot of users into the websites. But from the other side, we saw a very interesting thing. We saw a lot of industries that are very related to video, like video games and adult, also pushing a lot of traffic to Periscope website, probably using their technology for live streaming video. And this example was very nice to see how Periscope using this technology basically to build a nice ecosystem for their technology for other industries to using it and getting more installs. And when we try to look what other websites around this ecosystem, we found those very nice examples of websites that basically build services around the Periscope technology. So this nice example here is you see the Periscope. That is a website that aggregates a lot of live stream video of recipes. And down below here, you have another aggregator for live streaming for the Russian market, and another nice aggregator of live streaming in the Turkey market. So we saw this very nice example that they build great technology, and Twitter pushed it aggressively, and also build a great ecosystem around it to help them grow and sustain this growth. And moving forward to my last example for today, and one of my favorite websites, it's Reddit. And what I discovered that not a lot of people are aware of Reddit or know about it, but I'm going to tell you that something very unique, that Reddit is big. And if you ask me how big, I'm going to show you through our data how crazy big it is. Reddit is ranked number 25 website in the world, meaning there's only 24 websites out there that are bigger than him. Is ranked number 11 in the United States, and the sixth number biggest social network in the world. Last month, in April, humanity spent 18,000 years of time in Reddit itself. We saw there more than 700 million visits. They spent almost 30 minutes, and they did almost 9 pages per user, highly engaged users. And not only that we're seeing all this traffic that arriving to Reddit, we can see how Reddit become a massive power of sending traffic out there to websites. So we tried to look from all the social network that's sending traffic out. We saw that Reddit is the second social traffic driver in the world after Facebook. Meaning you're buying a lot of traffic from Facebook, but you have also Reddit that's sending enormous amount of traffic out. And if you look on the entire social traffic, it's almost 10% of the worldwide traffic going out of social network is going through Reddit. And if you look only in the US alone, 1 out of every 4 social traffic go for Reddit. 25% of all the social traffic going out in the US is going through Reddit. Now, you see all this massive amount of users and the highly engaged users. So basically, what you understand that Reddit found a very amazing fit for their audience. Basically, they have a highly engaged audience. And we decided to dig a little bit more there to show you how we're seeing traffic arriving to Reddit and where you're leaving Reddit to show you the type of audience that we're seeing on the Reddit platform. So I will start with show you where traffic arriving to Reddit, to this social network. Okay, so the third of all the traffic arriving to Reddit come from those 3 interesting industries: adult, gaming, and file sharing. All of them are correlate very strongly with young techie geeks, males, of course. That is very interesting. So now I'm going to try to show you where the traffic of Reddit is leaving to. And where we look at that, you can see that Reddit is pushing traffic heavily to the TV video industry. That is more than 42% of all the social traffic arriving to this industry coming from Reddit. You look on the gaming category, you see that Reddit is in charge of 43% of all the social traffic to coming to this industry. And the last one is the file sharing. Look at that. 90% of all the social traffic the file sharing industry received, that is almost 75 million visits a month, come from Reddit. And to finish my presentation today, we decided to show you a nice example of websites that basically are very heavily depend on the Reddit traffic. So this nice example of this image website, Imgur, that 60% of all its traffic arriving from Reddit. Second example is this nice streaming website that 54% of all of social traffic is coming to Reddit. And I'm going to finish my conversation with this, my favorite example, this porn website. Maybe raise your hand, everybody using it. I'm joking. Hexhamster, one of the biggest porn websites in the internet, 91% of all the social traffic that he received come from Reddit. So thank you, everyone, for seeing our insight about those 3 players. I hope you enjoy my presentation. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, or Offer, thank you very much. Okay, so we move on. Here, the growth acceleration stage at the Next Web Conference. Okay, so we move on. We're just about, again, we're going to have a delightful discussion on stage. Now, we're going to move on to the area of publishing. So, European media at the moment are developing new public funded models for news, okay? So to tell us more about that, our 2 gentlemen, which I will now invite on to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, put your hands together for journalist Mr. Jeff Jarvis. And also our moderator for the discussion, Mr. Alexander Klopping.
Good afternoon. Delighted to be here, and delighted to be talking to Alexander, who is one of the great hopes of saving journalism, no?
No pressure.
No, none. Yeah. Blendle has done very, very well in here. You've recently launched in the U.S., what now, about 2 months ago?
2 months, yes.
Talk about the contrast. Talk about what you've learned. Well, first, do you need to describe Blendle? Does everybody know what Blendle is? Do a pitch.
I'll
do a
explain,
pitch.
I'll explain very shortly. So basically, when we started the company, I remember that on an average Saturday, my Facebook timeline would be filled with pictures of people taking photos of print newspapers because that was the only way they could actually share articles.
Right.
And I was a journalist at the time, writing articles for such a newspaper, and I found it very annoying that I needed to take pictures of an article to share it. So my co-founder thought the same thing, and we thought, what if we would license all the content from all the major publishers in Holland and put everything in one system? And maybe by not making it necessary to get a subscription, and maybe also by giving me a few suggestions of what then I should be reading and stuff like that. So we approached the publishers with this, and they all told us no. And then we asked them again, and then they all told us no again. And at some point we made a prototype, and that's the moment that one big publisher, NRC Handelsblad in Holland, said, all right, this is cool, we like this.
Publishers are very literal-minded, they have to see it, right?
But this is a great tip for anyone doing a startup.
Yes.
I mean, if your plan is something that's only available in an idea on print, people will not understand it.
Right.
The moment they see screenshots, as ugly as it may be, people will, they need to visualize it before they can get on board with an idea. At least that's in my experience so far. So one got on board, another one got on board, and then we were able to launch about 3 years ago. Long story short, we launched in Germany in September of last year. The New York Times and Axel Springer funded our expansion. Love the Germans and the Americans. And then we launched in the United States in closed beta about 2 months ago, and just today we launched our apps in the United States. Yes, that's good. So you can download them on. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, bravo.
The guys worked really hard on them, and they're on Product Hunt. So if you want to upvote, I won't stop you.
So, Blendle enables a user to come in and buy just one article with a fund that they have there, and not needing to have a subscription, but they have the ability to go across all these publications you have.
Yes.
In
one system. And what's really important, I think, in these times, if you're a young person today, like if you were a young person living about 50 years ago, it would be totally normal if you were 30 to have a subscription to a newspaper. Right. It would be the most normal thing in the world. You would kind of identify yourself with that newspaper, and you would wear that membership proudly. But now if you ask a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old what's the subscription to the newspaper they have, they don't really have that, and they don't really seem to grasp why they should get one. While at the same time, the journalism being done by great journalists in the Netherlands or wherever, it's important. It's important that that stays alive. The research journalism, the big stories that explain what's going on in the world, the journalists that can take a longer amount of time to figure out how something really works or make sure they, expose something that's not doing so well. We need that kind of journalism to survive. And the question is, how will that happen if young people don't have a subscription anymore? And if I can just ask, how many people in this room have an ad blocker installed on their computer?
Be honest.
So
You're stealing from the mouths of journalists, every one of you. Don't you feel guilty?
Hold on. So I'd say this is about half. Would that be a fair reasoning? About half. So how many of you have a subscription to a newspaper? Wow. That's more than average, actually. You're a good crowd. Journalism, I mean, if these groups overlap, that's fine.
Let me ask one more. How many have a subscription to a magazine? About the same.
This is okay, actually. Yeah. This is okay. You're probably all journalists, and you get them for free,
exactly.
Or I don't know. But the thing is, the younger the crowds get, the more hands go into the air when you add the ad blocker question.
Hell, it's true. But listen, I started a magazine. I loved magazines. I used to buy magazines by the pound. I don't buy magazines anymore.
Yes.
Same way.
So this is the thing. And if it's harder to make money with them, because ads are the basic model to make money with journalism, at the same time people don't pay for that stuff anymore, there's a problem. And I think a lot of the problem was the same in the music industry about 5 or 10 years ago. If you would ask me, hey, would you ever pay for a song? I would be like, no. I've never bought a piece of music in my life, right? I didn't buy CDs when I was young because I just downloaded them on Napster. And No, yes. So I didn't listen to music. But in the end, when iTunes came around and Spotify came around, all of a sudden, all of my friends are now paying for journalism. And it's interesting, like, why are we doing that? Why are we paying for music right now? Because we could get every song for free on YouTube, and still I'm forking over 10 euros every month to Spotify.
Right.
Why is that? Why do we suddenly, for something that was so unaccepted that you pay for music, as it was the case about 10 years ago, why all of a sudden do we massively do it right now?
Because somebody made it easy?
I guess that's it. Made it easier, made it easy to find the songs that you like, have your friends all in there, have a social graph, have a recommendation algorithm, have a true experience. And in journalism, you know, if you compare it with, I don't know what to compare it. Like, maybe you're supposed to find the best articles on Twitter in between the streams, or maybe you're supposed to find it on Facebook in between all of the other stuff. I think something is lacking, and
Or,
it's
of
hard.
course, part of the appeal of Blendle is, or you find a link to that Economist article, but you don't have a subscription to the Economist because it piles up like guilt.
Exactly.
And you don't use it, so now you make that possible.
Yes.
All right, so a few questions about the current world. First, US market and European markets are very, very different. What are you learning, even in 2-month beta, and with major brands like New York Times supporting you?
Yeah.
What are you learning about the differences so far?
So I guess the biggest difference is that in the United States, the problem is actually much bigger, in the sense that there is much more content available. Some of it is free, a lot of it is free, a lot of it is paid for. But it's really hard to find the 8 or 10 best articles written by really great journalists, very often working at these powerful institutions. Where do you find the 8 or 10 best articles of today? You used to be able to pick up a newspaper and you would find them in there, and now it's just, you know, in this sea of information, where do you still get them? And I guess that problem is even bigger in the United States than it is in Holland, because here we have
more.
There's just more. Here we have, you know, there's 7 or 8 big national newspapers. Well, actually less. A lot of regional newspapers.
Well, don't forget, in the U.S., we didn't have national newspapers until the satellite allowed the transmission of plates
Exactly.
to printing plants in the 70s.
Exactly.
So we had local monopolies, which all turned into crap. But that's where we are. So only now do we have national brands.
Yeah, and there's always, because the English language is so much bigger, you have more niches. So there's much more content being made in specific niches where people use. And here, generic news is much bigger. So I'd say this is a really big difference between Europe on a whole and the United States on a whole. And this also, you know, made it to some extent easier for publishers in Europe to continue making money, because here people used to have subscriptions. Hell, still, there's tons of people in Holland who pay 300 euros every year to get a subscription to a newspaper, and they don't complain. This is going down, obviously, and the publishers are moving up with digital initiatives, but it's not like in the United States where everyone is basically dependent on ads.
You know, I'm actually going to argue with you for a second, because I think we're supposed to do that.
Please do.
Where you say there's too much in America, I actually think, not that we want to make this about America just because an American's up here, but it's interesting to me, the comparisons. I actually think we have less. The wealth of Europe is that you have, in each country, you have strong, divergent national voices in media, respected voices, that have led, I think, for more choice. Whereas in the U.S., you pretty much had the New York Times, USA Today, if that counts, the Wall Street Journal, if that counts, and that's it. So I would actually argue that, in a sense, you have more here to choose from.
More national.
So what's the behavior of the publishers like in difference? So after you went through the 3 times here in your homeland, and you signed them on.
That took a while.
Yeah, and then you went to Germany and signed them on.
Yes.
What are you finding with publishers in the U.S.?
They're much more eager to experiment in the United States, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good for you.
Yeah, it makes me very happy. Now, I'd say they're very patient. Because we're like, I'm not selling that we've saved journalism now with our small, 80-person company from Utrecht. We haven't saved journalism, but I'd say, who is doing it right now? Who is trying to really make an effort to save quality journalism? If you need, well, thank you very much. We're not there
the
yet.
Sound of one hand clapping for journalism. Yes.
Yes. So Facebook is a big player. I mean, Twitter and Apple and Snapchat and all of them are really big players who can help publishers with distribution.
Yep.
But they're not really helping them, I think, save journalism. What they are optimizing for in their algorithm is clicks, is page views. They're optimizing for how you, as a user, spend as long time per day in their app. And there is an incentive for quicker, clickbaity, quick video, quick snacking stuff in your timeline instead of the long New Yorker story. And then the question becomes, how do you pay for quality journalism if all the tech companies incentivize the quick click?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I'd blame the tech companies. What I would blame is the ad model, the business model that goes for reach and volume. Which I'm going to talk about on the main stage later this afternoon, not to plug that. But the idea of the mass of just reach and volume is where the clicks lead, and that leads inevitably to crap.
Yes.
That's not really Facebook's fault, I don't think.
Why?
Because it's the publishers who write those clickbaity headlines.
That's true. Yeah, they're feeding the
this
algorithm.
will change your life, and you will click, damn it,
Yes.
and come to this, and I can get all of that traffic, and it doesn't really lead to engagement or value.
Yes.
So, but you're part of, the paradox here is you're part of the distributed content world, right? Long before, a fair amount of time before Facebook enabled instant articles and said, you know, come here, come to the light, children, put your content here, you said, put all your content on a third party. You're not enabling, tell me if I'm wrong in here.
No, this is true. It was
You're not enabling me to go and just buy one article. You're not a micropayments thing in that sense. You are a sampling environment across multiple brands.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we actually do both. So we started experimenting on the side of a Dutch big newspaper, the Volkskrant, to enable users to go through the paywall on their own website, but just doing a little button where you can go through. We're actually making tools.
So you are working on that?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad for that.
Yes.
So when you see that article somebody linked to,
yes,
you could now pay for it rather than doing the trick.
Exactly.
Good.
But I kind of disagree with you on the fact that there's no blame for Facebook here, because Facebook is not, you know, they're not helping publishers to make money from their users by getting money from users. You know, apps, you pay Apple, and Apple distributes the money to the maker of the apps. That's a very clear transaction that you do there. And as a user, you can choose the free app or the paid-for app, and very often the free one has the ads and lesser functions, and then the paid-for version is actually better.
Are you against advertising?
I'm not against advertising, because I think it's great for news. No one's going to pay for the news, I think. But I am for, I think there's a fair amount of people that if you ask, hey, so we want to do this piece of research in a company that is very controversial and we want to get the truth out or whatever, we want to have a journalist work for it for longer than the 8 minutes that you can spend on your clickbait titles. Are you willing to pay for that? I think a lot of people would actually be fine supporting such a thing. But I don't think the tech companies are inherently interested in that. I think they're inherently interested in selling more ads, and that is a problem.
That's their model.
That's their model, but if they feel some sort of responsibility for journalism, and they say that they do. Google says they do, Facebook says they do, Apple says they do, but in the end they're ad companies.